This is the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council media briefing for week ending September 22nd, 2012. With the Orkinscure roundabout well on its way to completion, project consultant Dr. Ray Furlong gave the media some insight on the project.
The Orkinscure Boku Bay Road intersection has been the concern of a lot of persons, including the THA in terms of the accidents, in terms of the congestion delays and so on. And what to do to improve the congestion, what to do to improve the collisions that were taking place. Well, the options were, it was a major minor intersection, with the minor road being Orkinscure Boku Bay Road, the major road being Claude Noel Highway. The options were signalize it, thereby balancing the flows according to the demand in terms of time. Secondly, a roundabout, and I'll give the information on the factors influencing the design of a roundabout shortly, and even an overpass, meaning that you separate the grades in the same point in time one highway goes over or under the other. The intersection as it was, there were delays facing the people from Orkinscure Boku Bay Road for right turners and left turners. Right turners meaning those going to Canaan in particular. And there were delays for those coming from Scarborough wishing to turn right into Orkinscure. Primary delays during the peak morning and peak evening hours. I did a simulation because the first thing will come, will put a traffic light. It's there already. So the intersection is there already. Improve the existing intersection by way of signals. I did a simulation using signals on an optimum. Incidentally, data was collected before, so I'm using real data concerning the peak hours, morning and evening. We found that the right turn from Scarborough to Orkinscure was improved somewhat. There was some improvement in the delay. There was major improvement to the east-west flow, meaning from Scarborough to Canaan or the airport and vice versa. And there was improvement in the left turn coming out from Orkinscure. But there was no improvement in the right turn coming out from Orkinscure. So next, we went to the roundabout design. And this is where I want to throw out a concern to you as members of the media. The Orkinscure intersection is significantly large. And over the years, I'm very surprised that nobody raised the issue that improving traffic flow was done by way of expanding the intersection, which was in itself hazardous because you created left turn movements out and left turn movements in at high speeds, so that the intersection prior to the roundabout construction diagonally was more than 60 meters wide. So obviously, we could not reduce the intersection. Even if we had to put signals, we had to put signals on a big intersection. It lent itself very nicely to roundabouts. And it lent itself nicely to huge roundabouts, so that we could have put a roundabout with much higher capacity than required because of the magnitude of the existing physical space. So a double lane roundabout was designed. Double lane meaning there were two circulatory lanes going around the roundabout so that you can easily take the inside lane to go to the other legs of the roundabout, or you can take the outside to exit onto the lane. For example, coming from east to west, you can take the outside lane, coming from west to east, vice versa, or you can take the inside lane if you're going to Orkinscure or coming out of Orkinscure to go to the airport. What are the factors surrounding a roundabout, especially vis-a-vis signals? Well, before that, overpass is out of the question. That is an overkill, because the demand to use that intersection is really only at peak hours, morning and evening, and the volumes are not as large as people would like to think. So that is out of the question. There are some major advantages. There are off-peak periods when you do not have to stop in using a roundabout. A roundabout prides itself on having good sight distance from the right. You give way to vehicles from the right, as you know. And if the volume of traffic is low at the roundabout intersection, they're all called intersections. It's just a roundabout intersection. You do not have to stop. However, you have to stop at some point in a signalized intersection. If you get stopped, even if you get amber, you should stop. So there will always be delay at a signalized intersection. Now, the other factors influencing a roundabout design, and the primary factors I would like to suggest, is the issue, the first factor, the issue of conflict. By conflict, I mean how one vehicle interacts with the other. There are 4 primary types of conflict. You know them already, you just probably don't know the name. One conflict is one vehicle behind the other. The one in front pull brakes, you see something and you run into him from behind. That's a conflict, a rear-end accident, you call it. That's a rear-end conflict. The other conflict is one vehicle coming from the right or the left, crossing at a right angle. It's a right angle conflict. And the other 2 types of conflicts are the divergent conflicts, meaning that a vehicle is leaving the lane, like if you're coming from the airport and you're going into Hawkins-Cor, you're leaving the lane. That's a divergent conflict. And then if you're coming from Hawkins-Cor onto the road, onto the Claude Noel, it's a mergent conflict for 4 types of conflicts. The purpose of an intersection is to reduce relative speed, thereby reducing the intensity and level and types of conflicts. Let me explain. From your high school, you remember your relative speed, meaning the speed of the 2 vehicles and the angle of which they're approaching. For example, 2 vehicles coming directly opposite each other, 180 degrees. And the momentum is mass of each vehicle by the speed, and you double it because they're coming in opposite direction. So it's the highest form of conflict, collision, they're coming in opposite direction. Right angle is 90 degrees, and if the angle is small, 20 or 30 degrees, then you have a very low form of conflict, which means the relative speed is reduced. Hence, the advantage of a roundabout. It gives very low relative speed conflict. Second factor is the deflection capability. At the moment, you cannot tell any vehicle coming on the Claude Noel, slow down now, boys, slow down, people crossing the road, traffic want to come out. They actually speed up at the intersection. You do it perhaps. When you see somebody trying to come on, let me get through there fast before that person comes out. With a roundabout, if it is designed properly to deflect the vehicle, you see it shifting the angle of entry and the width of entry, you have to slow. So it's a calming, you have to slow down. So it's a calming device, and it allows the vehicle to slow down, thereby reducing potential for collision. And of course, the capacity is the highest in terms of both types of intersections for efficiency of operation. The other advantage of a roundabout is that it can have up to 7 legs. Legs mean each approach. So that I heard some people were talking about connecting a road from Milford Road straight across to the south side. Well, a signal intersection can do that, but it can only do it for up to 4 legs, like a cross. But a roundabout can do it just as easily, including providing for U-turns. A signalized intersection cannot provide for U-turns. If you're coming from Hawkins-Cor and you forget something home in Boku, you could easily go around the roundabout and go home and get it. So that, in addition to that, if the Claude Noel Highway was to be expanded to 4 lanes divided, and you have a median barrier, let's say, the capacity of that roundabout will still be useful for many years to come without having to improve it. To me, that is not a short-term measure that we are doing there. It's more a medium to long-term, because the capability of that intersection to handle traffic is good for several years to come. We have the numbers to show it, projected and so on. So that even if the area, Kilgwin, Friendship, and all those areas are developed, as you see the bank and so on going there, it can handle the future growth very well for some time to come. And the last point I would like to make on that is the design, the traffic control devices that influence the safety and efficiency of a roundabout. The factors that influence it, they are led by the pavement markings, what you know as the striping or the traffic markings. We call them the pavement markings, the painting on the road. If it is carefully done, it gives the motorist clear demarcation of the moves to make, the lanes to cross. We call it technically weaving. A roundabout operates with weaving lanes. If you ever saw, I was privileged to see a photo of the roundabout at the intersection of Claude Noel and Wilson Road in 1983. You all ever saw the photo? We have it there. You could see it after. It was equivalent to a traffic circle, right? Very, very small. The smaller the roundabout, the less the ability to weave. Weave meaning crossover to either the lane if it is 2 lanes, or in the case of the hospital, Scarborough Hospital roundabout, the ability to cross over from where you are to get to the exit leg. The smaller the roundabout, the more difficult and unsafe it is to weave. The larger the roundabout, and there are guidelines which range of radius of the diameter, it is to get safely from one lane or from one leg to the other. I said that was the last, but this one is the last on the roundabout before I take your questions. People tell me, some countries I work in around the Caribbean, they say, I'm the roundabout man. Next country, I favor, I'm the traffic light man. And so it goes on. I am pleased to tell you that I was involved in the design of the signals at Gulf City, right down the road from oil fields there, the delineation, which is safe to get into lane, as well as the roundabout. So which am I favoring? I am favoring what is appropriate for the specific condition and space available.
Addressing the media, Chief Secretary Orville London commended the Division of Education for their handling of repairs to the Scarborough RC School.
In the division, it is accepted that most of the major repair and rehabilitation work has to be done during the holidays. And in a situation where you have, I think it's 33 primary schools and 8 or 9 secondary schools for which the division is responsible, it is the responsibility of the principal to inform the division sometime before the start of the holidays as to what repairs and what maintenance work should be done in the particular school. And it is this information that instructs the division in determining what should be done and what will not be done. And I want to give the parents the assurance that the division, based on the information that I have received and the contracts that were signed and carried out, that the division did in fact operate effectively with respect to the information that was available to it during the holidays. However, after the school had opened, we had a situation where new information was brought to the attention of the division. And the division did not sit on its hands. Despite the criticisms, many of them quite unjust, the division responded and responded professionally. Despite a situation where, to a very large extent, the board of the school did not pull its weight, the division responded professionally. And we now have a situation where the division of its own accord would have brought in structural engineers, would have brought in OSHA, and based on the recommendations of the structural engineers and OSHA, they would have been involved over the past week or so in quite extensive rehabilitation work at the Scarborough RC School. The reports are that the school has been transformed, I would say, and that by the time the students return to classes on Tuesday, most, I would say, of the issues, both major and minor, will in fact have been treated with. So I really want to commend the division, because the division acted in a professional manner throughout this entire exercise and would have responded to the information as the information was made available to it. And I think in some ways they went beyond the call of duty and would not just simply have done enough to prevent persons from being disaffected, but they really would have worked to ensure that all the recommendations were handled both expeditiously and effectively. With respect to the construction of the school, and I think that over the last month especially, a lot of information or misinformation is being put into the public domain. The impression is being given that the Assembly, for some reason, is reluctant to build the Scarborough RC School. That is very far from the truth. Over the past 2, 3, 4 years, there have been discussions, there have been communication of various types between the board of the school and the division. In fact, a design was presented to the division. The division indicated that that design was much too elaborate for the purpose of the Assembly One, but it would not have been the kind of design that was defensible. Because the design, when it was costed, and I think the Secretary will have made that known to you, was costed at somewhere in the vicinity of $145 million. And the Secretary would have indicated that the average cost of a primary school of that size would be somewhere between $30 and $40 million. So that what the Secretary has indicated is that there is need for discussion between the board and the division so that they can come up with a design and come up with a process which is mutually acceptable. Because you've got to understand that the division cannot instruct the board. But on the other hand, the board has to operate knowing that the 100% of the funding has to come from the division. And in those circumstances, there must be some degree of collaboration and some type of agreement. So I don't think that there is an adversarial relationship between the administration and the board. And I believe that when the school does in fact open, if there are any niggling problems, that these problems can be resolved. I have been informed by the Secretary that efforts are being made to have the situation at Speyside where the system there is, I would say, quite inefficient, the air-conditioned system. And my information is that they're going to change the entire system and have single units, and that hopefully would bring the matter to a successful and satisfactory conclusion over an extended period.
The misconception that the THA showed favoritism towards the TRHA board by increasing the fee paid to its members was clarified by the Chief Secretary.
I want us to bear in mind that the Tobago Regional Health Authority operates under the same type of arrangement in relationship to fees as the other regional health authorities. And therefore, the increase in the fees to the members of the Board of Directors of the Tobago Regional Health Authority are in fact in keeping not with just a decision of the Tobago House of Assembly, but a decision of Cabinet. In fact, there was a Cabinet note in June of 2008 which reclassified the payment, the monthly fees, or to increase the monthly fees and traveling allowances payable to members of the Board of Directors, not just of the RHAs, but of state enterprises and statutory boards. And what this did is that it classified the boards and the state enterprises and the statutory bodies into A, B, and C. And depending on that classification, that will determine what your chairman, your deputy chairman, and your members would receive as fees and traveling. Now, we in the Tobago House of Assembly did not respond to that until the 23rd of March 2011, when, based on information coming from the TRHA, a note was approved by the Tobago House of Assembly. So, in effect, what we were doing was to bring the fees and allowances of the members of the board of directors of the TRHA in line with what was being paid by similar RHAs in the country and similar state enterprises and statutory bodies. And all of us are aware that if monies are due to you from a particular period, you are not only entitled to your new remuneration package, but you are entitled to the back pay that will represent the months that you were supposed to be paid. So, you know, it's a little sad that we take something which is very simple, very straightforward, and place a spin on it to give the impression that people are being favored. I also want to indicate, and I think that that there were some issues having to do with the transfer of funds from the Division of Finance and the TRHA and so on, and I think that we are working assiduously to improve the process so as to ensure that this kind of disconnect does not lead to any inconvenience on the part of workers. There is a problem. It is a systemic problem, and that is something that we have to deal with, and we are treating with it, and I am relatively confident that this can, in fact, be handled within the next couple of weeks.
Mr. London then turned to the reforestation program, which the ministry was hoping to privatize.
As you know, we had a situation where there was an impasse, I would say, almost a showdown between the ministry, the relevant ministry, and the Division of Agriculture, Marine Affairs, Marketing and the Environment about proposed changes in the way in which the reforestation exercise in Tobago was to be conducted. And I want to remind us of two things. One, why this was introduced and what was the arrangement between the ministry and the Tobago House of Assembly under the previous government, under the previous administration. This reforestation program had two major objectives. The first objective was to ensure, and I think we spoke about that we had a situation where the regeneration and the protection of the forest should in fact be improved. That process should be improved. And also it afforded for community involvement and the development of entrepreneurship and business acumen, etc., and business opportunities among the communities. As a result of this, it was the community which was responsible, the community group which was responsible for the selection and management, selection of employees and the management of the employees in this process. A memorandum of understanding was signed, and I want us to understand that. A memorandum of understanding was signed between the Division of Agriculture and the ministry so that to guide the process under which this particular program was conducted. And then along come these individuals, and without any consultation, just simply decide to change the process. And not only that, terminate the community-based managers or contractors, and then attempt to bring in their own private contractors in a process which was far from transparent, and attempt to put their contractors in charge of the former employees in the forest, which was under the control of the Tobago House of Assembly. The Secretary has indicated that since we have made our position clear, that there has been no attempt to intrude into the forest, and I hope that that situation continues. In the meantime, I know the Secretary has written to the Minister, and I really hope that we are now in a position where better sense would prevail and that that discussion can take place. Because I want to reiterate that the Tobago House of Assembly is always open to collaboration, always open to meaningful discussion, dialogue, whatever, so as to ensure that we can achieve our objectives and that we can ensure that we can benefit from each other's experience and each other's resources.
The Chief Secretary also added his voice to the heated topic, that is Section 34.
When I listened or when I looked on and participated in that march, I remember the words of Dr. Eric Williams when this country became independent 50 years ago. And he was defining democracy, and he said, democracy rests on a higher power than parliament. It rests on an informed, cultivated, and alert public opinion. And I think that we in Tobago have got to be very aware of the need for us to be informed, cultivated, and alert. Because if we are not alert, if we do not respond, if we do not send the right signals, we run the risk of being overwhelmed. When one looks at the history of repression throughout the world over the years, one will understand that there comes a time, the tipping point, if you want to put it like that, where people either stand up and the government has to respond, or they bow down or lie down and they are overwhelmed. That is the reality. And I think this is the tipping point for us in Trinidad and Tobago. But I think the point that I want to stress is that Tobagoans must understand that they are not insulated from what is going on in the rest of the country. The government is the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And if the government of Trinidad and Tobago abuses the people of Tobago are also abused. And we have got to bear in mind that what Section 34, that fiasco, is indicative of a number of other abuses that have been inflicted, not just on the people of this country, but the people of Tobago over many, many months. And you know, one of the ironies about this whole situation is that the abuses come so fast and furious that one actually causes us to forget the other, or to forget the previous one. And I think it's time, you know, that we as Tobagonians just pause a little. Look back at the last 2 years and ask ourselves whether ever in the history of this island we have had to endure so much abuse or so many abuses, so many insults, so many atrocities in such a short piece of time. That is the question we got to ask ourselves. And the question that we got to ask ourselves is, when should we say enough is enough? And that is why, you know, I am very heartened that the people of Tobago were represented, Tobagonians were represented. But not only that, that we had individuals who were prepared to shed their political differences, were prepared to shed their religious, racial, all the differences, and send a common signal that they are prepared to defend the democracy. And I really hope that this is a catalyst for, you know, a more alert, a more informed, and a more resilient, but definitely maybe a population that is much more assertive in its response to abuse.
Thank you for watching the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing for week ending September 22nd, 2012. For the Department of Information, I am Sophie Guillaume.